It's gonna smoke us out.
There's one food that grows extremely well in Montana, and it's definitely not rice for making risotto.
It's wheat, hard red wheat. And lucky for the homesteader out here in the 1800s, wheat is packed with all the vitamins and minerals it takes to survive.
We have 1 foot in the modern world here and 1 foot in history. But we're not milling wheat into flour today. We're about to try a recipe given to us by a Canadian friend of the channel that uses the whole of the seed, or the wheat berry, to make a hearty lunch for hungry farmers. Haying time is kicking off today, and this old 1889 homestead house is positioned right in the heart of rolling grassy hills. The middle of nowhere, maybe, but just the right spot for a meal cooked on the wood-burning cookstove. So let's fire it up and get to work.
There it goes, it's doing it.
I've only cooked on a wood-burning cookstove for decades of my life. You'd think I'd have it down by now. But no, today the old girl smoked and spit and gave us trouble. The reason for that would be a mystery to me until the very end of the day. But these old beauties are excellent for cooking a meal like this. We're gonna get out every cast iron skillet we've got and whip us up a lunch. And go for a ride in that swather later too, with the whole family.
Let's talk wheat. We have heritage 1800s wheat to cook with today. This is special stuff. This is not your everyday wheat berry that makes white flour from the grocery store. A man or woman from the 1800s would absolutely recognize the flavor. And it's the stuff growing right out there in the field right now. God willing, if we get enough rain, hopefully we'll have an even bigger crop. So we can offer wheat berries and stone ground flour. But that's all for the future. Right now, we've got wheat berries, Rouge de Bordeaux wheat berries. They have a nutty, almost cinnamon flavor to them.
Cinnamon.
Yeah, cinnamon. Very, very different from modern wheat.
Now we started this meal yesterday by soaking the wheat berries in cold water overnight. Any bits of chaff or empty heads of grain that rose to the top got skimmed off. This is a real food after all, darn near straight from the fields to our plate. We grabbed some onions that overwintered in our vegetable garden too, so that we can use the tops as green onion, and the onion itself can be caramelized to go atop the wheat berry risotto and grilled Italian sausages. This is gonna be good. Now, as delicious as the bones of this meal sound, I had to do a less appetizing job when we first arrived at the cabin, before any food got started cooking.
Anyone who's spent time in an off-grid cabin, a stone cottage, or a little shack like this made of raw wood, you know about flies. Never-ending flies. They just seem to spawn from the walls themselves. So the first step of the day before we can cook anything is to get all dead flies cleaned up and all surfaces ready to go. Let's do that.
All the plates, silverware, and cast iron from last week's campfire pot roast needed to be properly put away too. And with that, our kitchen was ready to cook a new meal on a new day. My little helpers joined in, helped me fight the smoky cook stove and get things started at least. And then they hitched a ride with Dad on his work in the morning, haying.
Bye, Maggie Goose. I love you. Have fun. Fun in the swather. See ya. Can you fall asleep?
Oh yeah.
Aww. Georgie.
Thanks, Dad. Bye, Mommy.
We've definitely got 1 foot in the modern world and 1 foot in history out here. Gone are the days when you could make a living as a farmer with maybe a couple of horses and a plow. Today, you better at least have some sort of modern equipment or time will pass you by. And there's so much about food that in some ways is the same as it was in history, and yet in some ways has changed so much. Something like the humble sausage. This is an Italian sausage. It's made right here in Montana, but when I think I'm gonna cook sausages for dinner tonight, I can just go right on down to my local grocery store and grab a pack of fresh sausages. Now, when we hunt wild game up here, the family gets all the equipment out and they make their own elk sausages, venison sausages, and then everything goes into the freezer. But obviously, freezers weren't a thing back in the old days. They certainly weren't a thing out here. Someone may have had an ice house, and usually it was only one of the neighbors. So one of the neighbors would go to all that work with their sons, cutting ice and storing it in the hillside, and then all the neighbors would use ice from that storehouse. It wasn't like everybody did everything. When we think of self-sufficiency, often we have that illusion that you have to be good at every single thing. But the reality is, there's not enough hours in the day to be able to do all those jobs. You needed one another. You needed the family down the road to cut the ice, and they needed you to grow the wheat, and that was how the system worked. So even in the rough and rugged frontier, you needed each other for all these different types of food. Something like sausages, you probably made yourself, but you either smoked them or for short term stored them in the ice house, but nothing like our modern freezers today. Food preservation is its own world of knowledge, something I'd love to learn more about. Talk about forgotten skills. Whew. Tough to survive without them too. It is a beautiful June day. We're gonna get this done because we have a man in the fields cutting hay that needs a good hearty lunch, and two little kids probably sound asleep in the swather who are gonna be hungry too. And we've got just the meal. So let's make an 1800s pioneer lunch. Fit for kings.
We've got wheat that has browned in butter in the skillet, and I've been ladling hot beef broth slowly, letting the berries absorb the liquid, just like in making a traditional risotto.
Now I've been told the key to a great risotto is that ladling. So ladling one scoop at a time and letting it absorb all that liquid before adding more. There must be something about it. You dump all the liquid in first, it doesn't create the same creamy texture at the end. So we're gonna do this by the book, step by step, one ladle at a time. I'm adding the standard salt and pepper, fresh ground from our brass grinder, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. But then I want to go out to the garden to pick something that is actually growing, despite many of the things in our garden that have died this year. We've had 2 frosts in June, one the 3rd of June and one in the last week of June, which is just, there's just not many plants that can handle that. And there's not many places in this country that have frosts like that. So let's go out to the garden and let's get one thing that's growing that's gonna take this meal over the top into a whole category of special and luxurious that even a humble homesteader could easily have made to elevate their foods. So let's go get it. Out in the garden, there's a few things still alive, but not everything. Today I'm planning to do a massive weeding, watering, and check on this garden. But for right now, I've got to get this lunch on the table. So I'm gonna cut one herb that's just gonna take this to an incredible state, purple sage.
Purple sage, which is a cultivar of culinary sage, is a Western staple, and any homesteader out here would have grown it because it's tough and it can take the Montana winters. This is the key flavor in breakfast sausage, and for us today, I'm hoping to fry it in butter and infuse the risotto with its flavor. Now, I mentioned the horrific late frosts, but just the bugs and pesky rodents have done their share too. Don't mind the weeds you see, I will get to them later today. And in some cases, these sprouts of grass and other thugs have hidden the delicate garden vegetables from predators. so they've helped a bit in their own way. But nothing can hold back the damage from the weather. Aside from fighting the weather flukes, which there's really nothing anyone can do about, I don't know how 1800s homesteaders handled the watering. In the Midwest, the rainfall and humidity probably did a lot of the work for you, but in this part of the country, it's called arid for a reason. We're basically a high desert. There is no way a lone homesteader could have had the time or the energy to water an acre garden. No way. The walk to your water source alone would have broken you down. Maybe a family with a whole passel of kids could trade off the labor. Maybe flood irrigation could have been employed by some. But in actually attempting the work of this, doing it myself, and really in this very small garden, I can see a major hiccup in our view of self-sufficiency in the past. Hand watering in a dry climate, it is no small work. And on top of the cooking, the laundry, the livestock tending, and the farming, this would have put you in your grave young. Robbie doesn't even believe it's possible for people to have had a garden that in any way fed them. We got into a whole big debate about this the other day, and it's one of the big reasons homesteaders went into debt and ended up buying so much of their food from town, which eventually caused them to lose their land to the banks. This sage would have been grown with almost no help. And humble though it may be, there's no doubt in my mind that it was beloved by homesteaders in their daily cooking. It was something they could grow and something they did grow.
Oh my goodness. The smell of that sage, that is heaven. Basically, I'm frying it in the butter. And I'm just gonna do it quickly because herbs can get really bitter if you're not careful. So I just wanna infuse this butter with the sage, and then I'll add that into our risotto.
I popped the sage out of the cast iron, and it's got a nice crispy feel to it. That'll be our garnish along with green onion. Now the family voted me out of caramelized onions. No imagination, these people. Now I'm no professional chef, my skills are developing day to day, but I'm trying to do this recipe justice because it came from a professional chef, Andrew up in Canada. He calls for caramelized onion, garlic, and a good cheese. The sage is my homesteader twist. This is a good recipe, and old recipes talk about this working too, but I'm not sure how this is going right now.
You're supposed to be close to done, but I don't know. Pretty tough. I don't know, guys. They've been going about half an hour. I soaked them overnight, but they still have a pretty firm, pretty good tooth to them. I'm gonna try and add some extra water, see if that can break them down a little better, but not quite as close to done as I guessed. Okay. Small hitch in the plan, right?
It's almost like the fire just isn't hot enough. They aren't simmering like they should be. Some of the wood is actually going out on me. So I don't know, something's off. More bad news though, hungry people have just arrived. Time for plan B. Luckily I threw a loaf of French bread in the back of the car, and this is gonna save us. At least the sausages are ready.
Did those come?
Of course, they overwintered. Yeah. These thy gifts which you're about to receive.
Max, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to eat, and then we gotta go again. Nice, Margaret. Because I can take Maggie back for a ride here. So you better eat up quick, Mags. Yeah, I was ready to rip and tear to go.
Dad's ready to get back to work?
And in a flash, the family is back at it in the fields. The risotto is still cooking down. I haven't given up hope for it yet. The flavor is incredible, but I'm hunting for texture at this point. There just must be a reason why this is taking so long. And it turns out there was. A very good reason.
Okay, I figured out why everything went a little awry today, why the wood stove smoked when we lit it,
and why the temperature just wasn't hot enough. I forgot to turn the oven off the last time I used this. So there's a special damper in the very back of the stove, and when you push, so that is oven off. When you pull it, that's oven on, and the damper closes up top and opens down below, and so it's sucking air around the stove instead of straight up the pipe, which means that the oven's nice and hot, but the cooktop is not where we needed it. Problem solved, of course, at the very end of the day. That risotto's still cooking away. Robbie and the kids are in the swather, cutting some more hay while I try and finish this risotto up. Things didn't go to plan, which, to be honest, is pretty normal out here. Often we hit hiccups in the road, and I was thinking about why, and I really think it has to do with the fact we're often trying old recipes or really unique recipes. Stuff that's just a bit different from what we eat in today's world. So we've got some different recipes, but that's not the half of it, because the tools we're using to cook these recipes are super old school. So last week we were cooking over the campfire. This week we're using this early 1900s wood-burning cook stove, and they are awesome, awesome tools, but they're fiddly, and they're difficult to control temperature and gauge where things are at. So like today, this risotto, that fire just died out a little too much. That bit of pine was too punky, and it didn't give off as much heat as the better pine that we have. Well, you gotta be able to read that when you look at your pieces of wood putting into the wood box. And I didn't read it quite right. So that temperature dropped in the firebox, which means the temperature dropped on top of the wood stove, and that cast iron skillet was just too cool. And when the skillet's too cool, that liquid couldn't cook down the wheat berries quick enough, and so they're just still too hard. They will get there in the end, I'm sure of it. Well, I'm about 60% sure of it because I've never made this recipe before. But we're gonna keep at it. It's a beautiful June day. We've got a cool breeze coming through the cabin. Honestly, this is heavenly. I'm washing dishes, I'm cleaning up, and the cabin smells heavenly because of that brown butter sage, that nuttiness of the wheat. I'm gonna finish up my work on the cook stove. I got the dishes washed while the family cut hay. This is a really important crop for us. The ground around here is rolling hills and beautiful grassland. Not great for vegetables, but well adapted for lush grasses. This grass feeds the cows through winter, making Montana a renowned producer of some of the best beef.
So this field that we're in right now, it's about a quarter to half of its potential. So we'll take this out of hay this year, and I really want to try the Bordeaux as a winter wheat to see if it is winter hardy enough. So we might try to seed that this fall here. 99% of the reason this ranch exists is because it can grow grass. So between pasture and then these hay fields, nothing's really flat or easy.
And in the prime bottom ground, we have wheat planted. Winter wheat, which has already formed its heads, and spring wheat, the heritage 1800s variety that's growing strong but isn't so far ahead yet. Montana grows some of the finest high-protein wheat. At least it does in certain areas. We're kind of on the margins, so when the weather doesn't drought out or hail out, we might get a crop. But spring wheat is always a gamble. There's no guarantees of any result. So needless to say, we recite our prayers and we have knots in our stomachs until the harvest time in the fall. I don't know what's going to happen with all that, but for right now, lunchtime, on a summer day, I get to sit down for a quiet meal that is absolutely a 5-star experience. What a beautiful, hot meal. I wish the others were here to eat it with me, but I'm gonna go for it because the smell is just delightful. Caramelized bits of sage, fried in butter, the infused butter that came off of them, whoa. It takes that risotto to a whole nother level. It definitely took the wheat berries longer than expected to break down. That nutty flavor of the wheat berries, it's really nothing like rice. It's its own category of thing.
It's got enough tooth to be really good. It's not mushy, it's not bland. That salty beef stock, oh boy. Yeah, green onions, Italian sausage, wheat berries with brown butter sage. I mean, all the ingredients here are very humble. These are not glamorous ingredients, but how they come together takes them to a whole nother level. I'd love to know if any of you have ever cooked wheat berries this way. I don't know if it's the heritage wheat or what, but I think it needed a lot longer to cook than in my head I had planned. Despite that little hiccup in the cooking, the flavor was definitely there. But I'm curious if there's any other secrets, like maybe soaking wheat berries in warm water or soaking them more than just overnight. Anyway, I'd be curious what you guys think. The dishes are pretty much wrapped up. I'm guessing both kids are probably asleep in the swather by now. Maybe I'll get a second to go weed the garden a little bit more. But I'm ready to put my feet up. Thank you to Andrew for this amazing recipe. Definitely a flavor straight out of history. Thank you to all our channel members. When you guys sign up, even if it's just for a couple bucks a month, it makes a huge difference for us because we're a tiny channel. I love getting to come out here and cook and try old recipes, try different skills from the past. So any of you who want to sign up to be a channel member, you get early release on most of our videos, you get special videos made just for you guys, and a huge appreciation because you keep our channel going. All right, everybody, out to the garden for me. Cheers. Hope to see you next week.